Hey everyone, can you guys hear me okay?
Nope, we can hear you. Hey, can you hear me?
All right,
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
awesome. Great. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Let uh, we'll give people a few minutes to join. But excited to have you all here. Thanks for joining us for our very first coach clinic.
Just a heads up, Alan, your headset's still crackling.
Thanks, Helen. We are going to try to roll with it. This is like the first time we've been in the office for a while, and my Wi-Fi has been all wonky. Sorry about that, guys.
It's pretty bad on my end. I've got the questions in front of me. I can play host if you want, Alan. I'm fine with that.
Sure. If you don't mind, Nate, I really appreciate it. I'm so sorry, guys, that our internet is off. I will try to troubleshoot it, but appreciate Nate stepping in. It's actually Aline for everyone who's on the call.
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you. No worries. I will hand over the keys to Nate then. Nate, thank you for stepping in as our host.
Sure, no problem. If you or I saw Zach in the chat too. If you guys have anything that I'm missing, feel free to jump into the chat, and I'm happy to tag along and kind of go with the flow here. So I guess we're switching it up a little bit today. So everyone, welcome. Gonna go ahead and start off this evening with the introductions. So just going off the sheet that we have here. Annabelle, you want to take a second and introduce yourself to the audience here?
Sure. So my name is Annabelle Zinn. I currently go to the University of Central Florida, down in Orlando by Disney and Universal. It's probably how you know about us. I am the Vice President and Risk Manager for Esports at UCF. I'm a radio TV major, and I definitely want to start documenting collegiate through video and also advocating. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Annabelle. Appreciate it. Callum?
Hello, my name is Callum Fletcher, the Director of Esports at Illinois Wesleyan University. Started off as a non-existent team, and now we're one of the powerhouses in a few of the games that we play. So excited to be here and excited to continue to develop out the space.
Thank you, Callum. Dr. Price, I believe you're up next.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Dr. John Price. I'm at Henderson State University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. This is into our third year of competition since we started the program, and I'm really excited to be here to talk about esports from college and everywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Price. And I suppose that's me last. My name is Nate Meeker. I'm the Director of Esports here at the University of Akron. Been running our esports program with 7 different varsity teams, over 18 different clubs for about 3 years now. In total, we've got around 2,500 students involved with our program, current defending National Rocket League and R6 champs as well. I suppose moving into the next set of questions here, we had a couple of things to talk about to go over with the programs we have that we're running at our different schools. So just to remind some of our panelists, the questions we're talking about here, just going over a brief introduction to our different programs, introducing how many players we have, how many esports we compete in, and then are there student-led clubs, are there varsity clubs, etc. John, you want to go ahead and start us off?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We're a varsity program. That's kind of how we started off, and we've continued to be. And we have scholarships and such associated with the program that we hand out. We have a budget, and we have about currently 50 players, a facility that has about 1,000 square feet with 12 computers inside of it. And right now we have 8 different esports titles, but it's one of the things we always have, like more casual titles around that students like to play as well as in groups. And so it's a combination of competition as well as community that happens a lot at our institution.
Very neat. Thank you, John. Callum.
Yeah, so we are a varsity only program. We have 44 students. 100% are recruited into play for us over the last 3 years. We have 5 titles. We just expanded. So we had League of Legends and Fortnite last year. This year we've dove into Rocket League, Overwatch, and Smash Brothers. We're coming for you, Nate, just telling you now. We have a 5,700 square foot facility that we've just opened up, which we just completely rehauled and renovated from our 1,000 square foot facility that we had last year. We're opening it up and revealing it for the first time in about 2 weeks, but it's 2 play spaces, conference room, competition room, broadcast studio, office space. It's the whole 9 yards. So pretty stoked about that. We do have a small esports club starting that is more casual focused, but for now, primarily we are varsity only.
Very cool. Look forward to the competition.
Hell yeah, man.
Annabelle.
So our program is a little bit unique in that it is a sport club. Not every university has sport club systems, but basically we are a student club that is competing in sports. So we get a little bit extra funding. We get to work with the Recreation and Wellness Center. We have about 60 to 80 players. It depends. We've changed the titles we're supporting this year. We have 8 different titles that we support. And we also have marketing and operation teams. So that adds an extra 20 students to our group. And as you can see, we are student-led. 100% of us, we're working hard. We want to learn skills for the industry. So everything is operated by UCF students.
Very neat. Sounds cool. And then I guess that leaves me. So at the University of Akron, currently we have 7 different varsity games. In total, 54 students that are on some form of scholarship to compete for us. That is Rocket League, Overwatch, League of Legends, Hearthstone, CSGO, Rainbow Six Siege, and Fortnite. Currently looking at adding some more, but those are the 7 that we support now at the varsity level. And then in addition to that, we've got a very large club program. Like I mentioned before, around 2,500 students involved in the club program. Overall, there are 94 PC stations on campus, as well as 30 some odd console stations on campus that students are able to use for free when they come into the facilities. And then the varsity side of things, they focus on the competition side, and they have a practice facility as well as a competition space here on campus. So that kind of concludes the introduction to our different facilities and what's going on at these different colleges around the country. The next question is for John and Callum. Callum, if you wouldn't mind taking the question first. Question is, can you tell us about the scholarships or other financial aid that's provided for your players? And how do you select which players receive these?
Yeah, so we have scholarships that are awarded to all of our students. So Illinois Wesleyan tries extremely hard to create an atmosphere that is the same from the top down, which I think is pretty unique in the collegiate space, because I think you'll find a lot of programs are either varsity only, or they'll have multiple teams and the varsity team will receive X dollars. And the JV team may receive none or a low amount. And so for us, and this is reflected in it to our JV players by hiring full-time head staff. So like we have full-time head coaches in the collegiate space for League of Legends and Overwatch, which are tier 1 as far as I'm concerned. And our JV team practices with those coaches just as much, well, not just as much, but they practice with those coaches, just like our varsity teams do. And so our scholarships are universal around all the students that come into our program. And it's typically, they'll bring in about $2,000 on esports. And then on average, we want to put a focus on their academic scholarship as an academic first institution, as with every other esports school. And so we actually offer up to about 30,000 in academic scholarships as well. So all in all, students are typically bringing in just over half of their tuition costs through scholarships.
Very cool opportunity there. John.
Yeah, thank you. So similar for us is we offer a variety of scholarships based on the different teams and kind of priorities. So we often have certain semesters of where 1 or 2 different competitions are happening. And so teams are awarded scholarships based on kind of the competitive viability of the event, and of course the actual dedication to the players themselves. And so based on that, that's kind of how we evaluate it. Some ways you might be asking is like, how do we decide who gets those? It usually is based on need. So are we trying to develop a specific team or program? It's based on, of course, competitive success that they might have had in the past. So if it's a high school student, like, well, what have they done in the prior years and such? Have they had a really high ELO in whatever game they're playing and the like? And of course, one thing we also reward is just team membership, organization, atmosphere. It's something I think any esports coach knows. Part of it is the culture. Like, do you have students that are able to actually function there or make the space better by just their mere presence? And so those are just some of the ideas touching on like how someone, or the justifications, or how someone might get a scholarship and such. But much of what Colin talks about is the same kind of thing that happens at a lot of institutions for awarding scholarships. There's a lot of money out there for scholarships for esports right now, that's for sure.
There certainly is. Folks just need to reach out there and get it. Thank you. Annabelle, I'm going to go ahead and skip my question for a second, come to you on the next one. So Annabelle, can you tell us what it's like to balance schoolwork and esports at the same time?
So at least in my case, I don't play as an esports player, which immediately frees up some of my time because esports players typically will practice however frequently they want. At UCF, we're a little bit more competitive, so that's usually going to be at least 3 times a week. They might be doing solo queue, ranked, other stuff, so they are practicing a lot, and it does eat into your time. So you really need to be good at time management, balancing your classes, because at the end of the day, we don't want a great esports player. We want a great student who is focusing on college and is succeeding in college. So we make sure to check in with our students for those kinds of things. And in the management side, we definitely sometimes push our staff, but we always make sure to kind of respect their time, because at the end of the day, we are all putting some of our free time into it, and we all have to remember to take breaks. Do staff nights, hang out and make sure that we're having a good time, do watch parties and that kind of stuff, because you don't want to get too stuck into your work and get burned out, for sure.
I actually have a follow-up question, if you don't mind, because this is a question that comes up often, and I'm curious to hear your answer about it. You are in a unique position as a student leader where part of what you're doing is managing the teams and managing the players, right? So as a student who's managing other students, do you find that that's a tricky relationship to be in? And how do you manage that relationship?
So it definitely can be tricky. At least in our club now, we're focusing a lot on professionalism and treating this not as just like a club. If you're a staff member, you are quote unquote hired, you turn in a resume, we do interviews, we make sure it's official, and you understand that this is something that is going to be public facing. And we also have different tailored positions. So for example, we have a general manager, a GM, who specifically is representing our players and making sure that they're heard. My job as a risk manager is to kind of help sport clubs make sure that our players are safe, they're taken care of, all of our spaces are also free of risk. And so we have tailored roles like that. We have a marketing coordinator who works with marketing staff, but we try to pick really qualified people or people that really want to learn. And if there's ever like any kind of issue, we do have team building resources from the Recreation and Wellness Center that they help us with anything like that. If we ever want to do team building or professional skill learning, those are resources that we luckily have access to. So it can be tough, definitely. There can be drama, but once you focus on this is professional, we're playing for money here, we want to have a great program, it does motivate students to kind of move into the more professional sphere.
I'm gonna steal that answer, by the way, when I get questions about that. So thank you.
For sure.
The last question there in this section was mine, and it is what are some other ways students can be involved in our types of programs besides competing? So this isn't necessarily unique to Akron. Most programs are going to have some aspect of this. So for us in particular, there's a few different things that students are able to do. One is that students who may not be into competition can definitely still take part in esports, whether they're on the stream team, whether they're doing social media for us, whether they're helping with event management, whether they're just getting hands-on in the field type of experience for these types of things. So here, what we're doing is we actually provide paid positions and then unpaid positions for students in these different interest groups. So we've got students that head up broadcasting for us. We've got students that head up our social media department. We've got students that are doing event management for us on campus. We've got students that do tech support. And of course, they're all managed by our professional staff here on campus. So we've got 3 full-time professional staff managing students. And what we do is we try and provide opportunities for those students who may look to have a field or a career field in esports and help them develop those interests while they're in school. Some of those can lead to scholarship opportunities through the program and through some of our external sponsorships as well. And then other opportunities that can lead to jobs outside of just being in esports in higher education. So just because you're not a competitor doesn't mean you don't have a chance to engage with esports on campus. The next question that we have is opened up to anyone. So I'll leave it to Callum, John, and Annabelle. The question is, how does COVID impact your program, and how and will you be competing virtually in these upcoming semesters? Anyone want to take a go at it first?
Sure. It sucks. So yes, we will be competing virtually. So we've just opened this new facility. It's incredible, and it has already changed how we use the space. And so for us, being we want to focus on community with our esports program, and so our facility is typically open to all students on campus. And so everyone on campus has the ability to come in, use the space, play games with their friends, hang out in the lounge, the whole 9 yards. And due to COVID, we've actually made it esports only throughout the entire facility, just to try and kind of create a micro bubble, if you will. I understand that students are at class and what have you, but doing everything we can. We've also installed plexiglass between every single station, in the studio between both broadcasters, in the studio between both production teams. No meetings are to be held in the conference room. No meetings are to be held in any staff office. Students aren't even allowed to open our doors. They knock and we go outside entirely to meet them. So it's kind of changed the way that we interact with students, which is really challenging because it has forced us to try and create meaningful, impactful ways that we can be accessible and immersed in student life here at Illinois Wesleyan, which obviously is challenging when you can't go to an event with the student and like be seen at a variety of off-campus, off-esports events, right? Yes, we will be competing. I suspect as schools start to close down, which I think at some point will likely become inevitable. I think as schools start to close down, last year we had this unique circumstance where everyone was, I don't want to say blindsided because we all saw this coming, but leagues and organizers didn't have a system to take their tournaments and leagues virtual. And so we saw leagues like Collegiate Star League continue on, but offer the same prize pool to the remaining teams and just kind of say, like, if you want to be out, you're out, right? Collegiate League of Legends shut down effective. I think they suspended for a month and then shut down. I don't think that's going to happen this year. So I think we'll see a continuation of leagues because I think everyone at this point is prepared for that as a very realistic kind of inevitable future. So I think leagues will continue. The challenge that what you will see for an organizer standpoint is, like, I have kids on my Rocket League team, for example, who are playing from Hawaii, California, and Ohio. And so if we're playing up against a team like Akron, for example, who, I mean, I don't know where your players are located, but let's say they're all located in the Midwest. My players from California and Hawaii are going to be playing on a significantly worse connection, which does significantly impact our competition. Not only that, but I have players in my program, for example, who live in Arizona who do not have reliable internet at home. And so what happens when my varsity team can't compete at a varsity level because of reasons out of their control? So that's a situation where we as a university will have to look at providing potential housing so that we can continue that competitive environment. But that's obviously a big ask and a big buy-in from both the university and the students. So yes, we will be competing is the short answer. There are going to be roadblocks and there's going to be things that we are not prepared to handle that we will have to handle. And you really don't know those situations until they happen. And that's one of the big things about collegiate esports is you really have to be agile and nimble, and all of the best programs and everyone that you see here understand that, you know, you're going to be handling what you handle tomorrow is probably nothing that you've ever experienced, and that's part of why we all love it. So.
Thank you, Callum. John or Annabelle, do you have anything that you'd like to chime in with?
I can kind of piggyback off of what Callum brought up with, students being everywhere, kind of figuring it out. Our club was actually, our proceedings started in March, which is when UCF shut down right after spring break. So we have done the entire process of creating this club, selecting the officers. We had to do it all online. All of our teamwork sessions had to be online. So it's been kind of interesting to see how that works, but we've kind of figured it out now. We've kind of made it work, maintaining communication, but respecting that people have lives outside of the club, making sure that we clearly list what our goals are and our assignments and how we manage our staff and our players. And also just being understanding, because there are going to be situations where a player can't play or they can't come back to the United States, or their computer just doesn't work and we don't have a space on campus for them to play. Right now, all of our students play from wherever they live. And some student housing has great internet, some student housing doesn't. And we can't even tell our players, hey, you can go to another player's house and use their internet, because that's not safe anymore. So it's definitely been interesting for us. We don't practice in person, so we don't have to do any risk management right now. But any meetings about a space or our old, one of our sponsors actually was a space in Orlando that we would travel to, but we can't even ask our players to go there anymore because it's just not safe. And our school did reopen, it's a hybrid. So students do have to go on campus. So it's just been interesting. Also, as a student, my education being impacted has been somewhat stressful, but at least the club has been working out. And so that's something that I can be happy about. And a lot of our students are just taking the extra time they have to learn marketable skills, video editing, social media, whatever they enjoy, which is one of the upsides, I guess.
Thank you, Annabelle. Dr. Price, was there anything else that you wanted to add on there?
I think everyone covered a lot of, because we're dealing similarly. We're a hybrid campus and having a lot of the similar kind of aspects of internet connectivity, equipment needs. We're only able to use half of our space right now. And so even the process of loaning out equipment to some of the competing teams, I'm going through and kind of following university procedure all on top of that. So it makes it difficult. I guess one of the only bright spots for this is it has allowed for at least us to kind of figure out whether or not making the Discord more accessible for new players, and because our recruitment now essentially has to be entirely digital. And since we do have a large community element at ours for our program, that at least has been interesting, because we've had intramural programs reach out to us and such on campus. So we're using that as a way of getting more campus activity and awareness around our program, because we're using our knowledge of existing platforms to try to get intramural tournaments going for various titles that we normally wouldn't play, because there's not a collegiate scene for it, but there is something there for a community kind of building aspect of it. So that's kind of how we've really shifted gears. Still have some competition happening that's all remote, but also now we're using now that we're online anyway, using that focus to connect to students and staff that might not otherwise know of us.
Excellent, thank you. I think the other three covered it really well. The only thing that I would add to it, as the biggest impact for us, other than what was mentioned, is the fact that the new incoming students coming into campus this semester are much harder to reach than they might normally be, where we're able to get in front of the entire student body multiple times during the first weeks of class. And then that's not able to happen when you're doing remote learning, when you're doing distance learning, when you're trying to connect digitally. So it's definitely been a challenge to try and connect with the same numbers that we would normally connect with on campus. It does move into our next question here, which again is open to anyone. We did hit on this a little bit, but if anyone else has something to add, the question is, how do you support your players mentally and physically during this time?
So I kind of have cheat codes. I hired somebody with a degree in psychology as to be one of my esports coaches. So I have one of my coaches does have a degree in psychology, but we don't let him play the role. One of the reasons we hire, so realistically in the collegiate space, you're going to find most programs are run by one or two people, mostly one person with like student workers. For us, we brought in 3 full-time staff with the idea that we want our staff to be totally accessible to our students. I want my Rocket League kids to be able to come up and get help just as much as my League of Legends students, whether it's in-game or personal or anything else. And if you've got 50 kids and 1 full-time staff who's also managing a full program, that accessibility is just not there. So we create an environment of accessibility that all of our players have our information. All my players have my cell phone that they can call me at 2 a.m. for whatever it is. And I've been called for domestic cases at home. I've been called for anxiety attacks, and I've been called for just like having questions about video games. And so creating that environment of accessibility is incredibly important. And then even more so than that is understand that, like, realistically, you are not the expert when it comes to mental health. And there are people that are the experts on your campus that you can tap to, and use those resources. So understanding what resources you have on campus accessible to students. So, like, for example, if a student were to approach me and discuss having a breakdown or discuss, hey, I'm struggling with this class or whatever, I'll talk and I'll listen and I'll help them as much as I can. But I will make sure that by the end of our conversation, they understand that they have X, Y, and Z resources available to them, like counseling services, like academic advising, whatever it may be, like tutoring. And I will get them in contact, and I will quite literally walk them over to our counseling services center on campus and introduce them one-on-one with the director of counseling, just again, to kind of have that accessibility, like, hey, we're here for you. We want to be supportive for you. And then going from there, check in with the student, right? Be there for them. If they're going to counseling, it's not like, okay, great, they're out of my hands, they're going to counseling. It should be, they're going to counseling. Now I need to be that supportive ally that they need every other step of the way. So how we're handling it is know our resources and be accessible.
Thank you, Callum. Dr. Price or Annabelle, do you guys have anything to add?
I'd add one very much same course. One of the biggest things I think anyone that's put in one of these roles, because a lot of times if you ask people in the industry, like a lot of times you suddenly assume a role, you had no idea they're interested. Even if you had a background in esports or are unaware of it, a lot of times you're put into this position where you were doing one specific thing, you had that one silo, and all of a sudden you've added esports, and you're not really sure what's all out there. It's really important to use your campus and its resources and get to know them. Talk to the counselors. They have training, take it, especially if you're running a program. And I'm one of those situations if I'm literally the only staff that's member and I'm a professor on top of it. So you have to be able to find and get resources to your students when sometimes you just don't have them yourself personally. The only other thing I'll add is a lot of times students themselves, they can really help with a lot of the mental aspects. I have students say, hey, I saw blank and blank having a really bad day. You might want to talk to them, kind of thing. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of students that are kind of in leadership roles that they've adopted themselves. That makes it easier to be able to see when someone's in strain, and being there for them and knowing that you're there is a really important part of that. So,
Thank you. Annabelle, anything to add, or we can move on to the next section?
I definitely have a couple things to add, at least from like a student perspective. I think there's a couple things that we can do. Number one is like normalizing mental health in esports, which is probably something that everybody here knows about, but sometimes we forget, especially in our program. I could say we get larger. Sometimes it's something that we push aside. And we want to make sure that students feel comfortable, make sure that they're interacting socially, and make sure that they're not lonely. And really make it so that they feel comfortable reaching out. I know, at least for student orgs, it can kind of feel weird. You know, your leader is also your peer, but they also might be older or younger than you, and it's college. So what we really want to emphasize is that, like, we are here for our players, and we're trying to do that. You know, we're not just the officers who sit at the high table and never interact with our players. We want to make sure that we're taking care of them. And we also allow them to give feedback on a lot of different things that we're doing, and it makes them feel like they're a little bit more involved. So we really try to communicate with our students, and I think one of our goals, especially after having this discussion, is going to be to make sure that we're talking to them, make sure that they're okay. And we're a sport club, so we are under recreation and wellness, so obviously we should be looking at these things. And also with physical health, that is something we have access to. The Recreation and Wellness Center, our gym, has athletic trainers, has these different services. So it's about educating students. And if they need it, then they can go and reach out and we will help them with that. And also I have to be CPR certified. So there's that. I have to manage risk. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you,
Could you
Annabelle.
imagine? Could you imagine giving CPR during a pandemic?
When I when I went for Rocket League for in Charlotte, I had to go because I was the only CPR certified student. And you have to if you're traveling. There has to be somebody CPR certified, no matter what.
Can I just add on really quick too that not only is COVID a big issue, but burnout is a big issue. I think that's kind of something that Annabelle like kind of hinted towards is that, like your esports is 24/7, and you will have, especially for like student-led programs. I genuinely don't know how you guys do it, because it is quite literally 24/7, and so understanding like it may not just be COVID that your students are handling personally, and academics are tough, and moving away from home is tough, and um, knowing your resources is the most valuable thing.
Thank you, Callum. Actually, one final point before we move on, kind of tagging along with what Callum said at the end there, is this pandemic allows you to see which programs had been thinking about this beforehand and which programs maybe hadn't. Because esports, as Callum said, is 24/7. We were already in the virtual space well before this pandemic happened, thinking about how can we support players physically and mentally just when they're not on campus during the summertime, during winter vacation, during the most hours when they're not here on campus. So that was something that was already being planned, and now it's being implemented across the board at a lot of these different colleges around the country, which is cool to see. Just before we move into the second to last section here, as a reminder, we're going to be going through the Q&A section at the end. So if you're here and you have a question for us, feel free to ask it in the Q&A section. There is a little button down at the bottom of your Zoom. It says Q&A. You can click on that to submit a question for us. So let's go ahead and move on into the player recruitment. Callum, first question is for you. What can high school coaches do to help promote players for your program? What skills should they focus on for their application season?
So I'm going to echo something that Annabelle said earlier. We're looking for good students first, and we want holistic students that are focusing on everything, not just esports. Wesleyan's a pretty academically rigorous school to get into, and if you're sending your 1.5 GPA top 100 player, I'm not even going to give him a second look. And I think most of these top schools are pretty similar. So what can you do as a high school coach or director in order to get your players recognized? This is actually a pretty broad answer, because the answer is a lot. Take your teams to local schools. I guarantee you that as a collegiate program, if local high schools are calling me up saying, hey, we want to come tour your facility, or we want to come play a game from your facility, or take a look at your teams, doors open, guarantee it. Because I'm seeing potential recruits, I'm seeing exposure for the program in the school. There's no school in this country that is going to turn down those opportunities. So look around and see what resources you have available in terms of what colleges are nearby, and take them firsthand to get that exposure. Second thing you can do is most of these programs have Twitters or social medias or Twitch streams or something like that. Have your student reach out to us on Twitter, have them reach out to us on Discord, have them reach out, join our Illinois Wesleyan Esports Discord, and just say like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm from here, and this is what I'd like to do. We are looking for you guys as much as you are looking for us. And so it's not challenging. You just have to be proactive in finding those avenues. So hit us up on social media. It could be my personal Twitter for all I care. Come down and see our facility and expose your kids to our space. Get them involved in our Twitch streams, right? If we're playing Akron in Rocket League and you've got a top 500 Rocket League player, have him watching and engaging the chat, because those are things that both Nate and I are going to notice. And if a kid comes in and says, hey, I'm a top 500 Rocket League player, you bet your ass I'm calling that kid that night, right? And I guarantee you, so is Nate, so is Annabelle, so is John. Like we are looking for students as much as you're looking for programs to get them into. With that being said, I will also do your research. And that's something that I tell every single student, but especially as a as a faculty or staff member, do your research. What I mean by that is don't send your students to schools with bad programs. They exist, and they exist very often. And so whether that means they are just a poor structure, it could be poor staff, it could be lack of resources, right? Don't send your top 500 Rocket League player to go play for a school with a gold level team with no coach and no structure on making them better. That's not going to do your student service, right? It's very easy to look up, okay, collegiate, let's say Rocket League. Okay, we're going to look up collegiate Rocket League standings. Okay, these are the top schools. Okay, these are the people that play for them. Okay, these are the coaches of the teams. And it goes for literally every game. Rocket League, Overwatch, League of Legends, you can find the resources to know who is good and who's putting those resources into their programs to be sustainable and putting the resources into the students to make sure they're successful, not only competitively, but academically as well. So as a head of those students, do your research and understand that not all esports schools are good esports schools. And just because I'm a good esports school doesn't mean they're a good school, right? Take that holistic approach, find every angle, and do your research.
Thank you, Callum. I'll add one thing to that just because my question is actually pretty similar as well, is that as a high school coach, I welcome the communication of players that you have that will be graduating in the next couple of years. I'd be glad to jump on a phone call, talk about our teams, as Callum said, show you the facilities under normal circumstances, right? Have the teams come in, but definitely let me know what's going on with your teams. Send me an email, shoot me a text message. Let me know what's going on, saying, I've got 5 players graduating, I've got 6 players graduating, I've got 7 players in my junior class right now. Let me know what's going on, because seriously, filtering through the top 500, top 1,000 players in 7 different games and emailing them and finding out who's in high school right now is not the easiest job in the world. So anything that you can do to help promote your players is beneficial. If you have to take control of that conversation to help them get into college and get a scholarship for what they're doing now, definitely take advantage of that, because you're in a position where you can communicate with the college coaches right now and let them know about the players that you have available. Next question is for John. The question says, does your program recruit? I know you guys do, so maybe you can talk about how you recruit players, Dr. Price?
Yeah, I was about to make that same twist as well. So, hey, on the same wavelength. So I know some of the people here that are listening are probably college administrators and stuff that have just been given this. And so you're like, how do I find these students? So first thing, get to know your admissions department. You should have lunch with them have coffee digitally with them or something. But getting to know the admissions department is like one of the first things you really need to do, because they often not have personnel out in multiple areas of the country that are more likely to actually have connections to high schools that could have programs and the like. The second big thing there is if you can, when it's normal times, go to, if our state just added esports in the last year for secondary education as a varsity sport. So we would participate with all those different activities and the like, so we can find those high schools and get in front of them, so to speak. And that's the big aspect here, is that you're being proactive. And one of the interesting ways, of course, collegiate and high school esports really work at this point is the future of it is very much based on synergy of both sides working together to really create connections and the like. And so a lot of my time is very much trying to talk in front of classes, host events with high schools, or importantly, help high school programs develop, because inevitably those programs developing are the future students that end up coming to my university. And so those are some of the important things that anyone that just is kind of joining the collegiate space is going to want to consider going forward, because more than likely there's a lot of high schools there or people at high schools nearby that have been similar situation. They've been asked to suddenly run an esports program, and they don't know what resources they're having. So a big part you're doing is connecting your program with them, because they're in the similar situation of trying to find what all is out there and the like. And so it's a lot of work, but definitely can be fruitful for all those involved.
Thank you. Annabelle, I'm going to go to you next. What would you recommend players and coaches to practice to become a college esports player?
So for players specifically, I definitely think there are a couple of skills that we're going to look at besides just your rank or maybe your competitive success. We want you to be able to communicate with us, especially during these times, because if we can't hear back from you, there are certain requirements that you have to meet before you can even play for us. Our club can get suspended if you don't sign some paperwork or join something. You've got to pay dues. So being communicative is really helpful for us and for you. You get to hear from us when we have new updates. We also get to hear from you when you have feedback for us. And so I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about. Like, my rank's going to carry me. They're going to pick me up 100%. Your rank does matter, but you know, your attitude also matters. Let's be clear. If you can handle stress, if you can communicate with other people, if you know how to work with a team, that's great for us, because we're not just trying to make a team, we're trying to make a successful team. You know, we're run by students, so sometimes disciplinary can be difficult, but we are, you know, we're really honing in on that, and that's going to be something we're enforcing. We have a code of conduct now, so it's pretty serious when it comes to that. And I think at the end of the day, if you care about esports, we will notice, and that's something that we do really encourage in our students. But I also want to say that if you are kind of new or you don't have experience, that's totally okay. That's part of collegiate, is growing into yourself and learning what you want to do. And so in our club, we have junior officers that we usually pick up who might not have a lot of skills, might have a lot of skills, but they want to learn something. And at the end of the day, that's what we really want from coaches, from staff. Our junior officers specifically get to work on projects that they like. So we're really all about, what do you want? What can we help you with? And how can you help us? That's like, we're having a discussion here. We're not telling you what to do. So yeah, I think that's kind of important.
Thank you, Annabelle. My question was, what skills are we looking for in players? But I think Callum, John, and Annabelle answered that already. So in sake of time, I'll take a stab at the next one. And then if you guys have any feedback, feel free to jump in as well. The next question up for us here is, how early should students be making contact or reaching out to college teams that they're interested in trying out for? From my perspective as a college administrator and an esports coach here, typically I start looking at players in their junior year. So the fall of their junior year is about the right time to start reaching out and saying, hey, I'm going to be graduating not this year, but the next year, starting that application process early, maybe even attending an early tryout if the team will let you do it in order to get yourself on the radar. Any earlier than that, it's not necessarily a bad thing to reach out and let folks know what you're looking at, but being 3 years away from graduation, the games may change, the skill set needed for the games may change, maybe your interest in a degree changes. Maybe one day you were looking at a liberal arts degree, and then 2 years later you're looking at a technical engineering degree that you want to do. And those colleges could look very different. So I would say junior year, senior year for sure, you should be looking that fall semester. Spring semester probably is too late your senior year. You're going to be applying to these schools that are already having tryouts in most cases. So for you, definitely towards the beginning part of your junior year, or at the very least the beginning of your senior year. Callum, Dr. Price, or Annabelle, any follow-up to that before we move to the next one?
Yeah, I mean, like, there is such thing as too early. If you hit me up in your freshman year of high school, as much as like everyone's gonna say, oh, I won't forget about you, like I'm not gonna remember you 4 years later. You've got to keep in mind that as a recruiter, I talk to hundreds of kids every single year, and so where you're at your freshman year in high school, like, it's great to make that relationship, but it's making that relationship is all it is, because at the end of the day, you could be playing League of Legends your freshman year of high school, and that you reach out, hey, I want to play League of Legends with you guys, and by your senior year of high school, you're playing Overwatch. And kids change their minds all the time, and what you're looking for your freshman year may not be what you're looking for your senior year of high school. So I totally agree. Junior year, senior year of high school is around the right time.
Thank you, Callum. Dr. Price, Annabelle, are we good to move to the next one, or would you guys like to add something?
I will just say, at least for tryouts, we have official tryouts at our school. but you can always reach out to us and we will discuss like, hey, you can either go to tryouts next time. Maybe we have some space for you. It depends on what you want to do. So we're pretty open about that, and we're never going to say no to talking to you. So always feel free to advocate for yourself or just talk to anybody, because no one's going to shut the door in your face unless you give them a reason to, which is probably going to be pretty difficult.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and actually skip the next question because it's our first question on the Q&A. And let's go ahead and give each of our panelists here a second to plug their program, talk about how an interested player could reach out, how do they apply, and maybe if they have a link to their program, they could post it in the chat as well. Callum, you want to start us off?
Sure. So Illinois Wesleyan University, honestly, it's a damn good school. So I typically will start there. As far as academics go, we are #1 in job placement out of college in the in Illinois, and #7 in the United States. 97% of our kids are graduated or employed within 6 months of graduating, right? Like, that's insane. Beyond that, we also have extremely competitive esports teams. Our League of Legends team is recognized as one of the best in the country. Our Rocket League team has a really good foundation. We're about a 1,900 average team with an expectancy to be around 2,000 this spring, with some new players that we have coming in. So hopefully we'll be in CRL with you guys this year, Nate. Our Overwatch team is a really good foundation. Our Fortnite team is really good. Our Smash team is really good, and our facility is absolutely gorgeous. Not only that, but we also have more resources put into our into our programs than most schools do, with 3 full-time staff and then about 8 student workers. So we're kind of one of those full package schools. And so if you're interested in learning more about it, reach out to me on Twitter at FlizzyFletch. You can hit me up on Discord, Fletch, #8793. I'll type it in the chat for you guys. Our website's currently under development, so otherwise you can check out iwu.edu to learn more about the school. Applying is free, so good place to start that process there.
Thank you, Callum. Dr. Price.
Yeah, so Henderson State University has a variety of aspects to it, but I'll talk mostly about our program. One of the things that we really focus on is community development, and particularly just esports in general. And so our students here kind of have themselves a family. The esports lab is a place where you've come in, you're going to know someone, you're going to be in a conversation. The amount of times I've been up there and students have just been there for hours upon having fun, not even playing video games as part of it. And that's kind of, I think, one of our best selling points is that we have an administration that's very supportive of what we have. We have programs in nursing, business that are recognized across the country as being well. And of course, one of our things that we have is that we're relatively cheap in the sense of what it is. And everyone's looking for a different thing in a university, what it has. So for us, it's really a community focus with a competitive element and the like. And so you can always reach out to me at price.j@hsu.edu. We do have a website, though wish we had a shorter URL, but one of those things. Sometimes you're working with bureaucratic nightmare that is a university. But I'm always happy to talk. And even if you don't end up at Henderson, the important thing I think everyone can say is that we're trying to help anyone find a place in esports someplace. And that's I think one of the most interesting parts about this is we're inevitably in it together because we all care about gaming and esports.
Thank you. Annabelle.
So in terms of UCF, I'm always going to be a Knight, 100%, always going to support UCF. You know, we have a lot of school pride here. We're also a very large school, but I think our program is we are rapidly evolving, and I think we've had competitive success, but now I think we're going to be a pretty, you know, a solid program, I guess, is what I want to say. I'm really proud of where we are now. CSGO national champions, by the way. You know, one day we will defeat Akron in Rocket League. So that's gonna, he's gonna have to sweep Rocket League at some point with Akron. So I really love our program. I want more people to know about us because we're kind of, I want to say, the hidden champions. But if you're interested in talking to us, I'm always happy to talk to you about esports, whether you're interested in UCF or just collegiate in general. I've only been in the scene for about 1.5 years now, but I've learned so much that I always want to share it with people. Our social media is super active, and usually we end up recruiting students who are always already going to UCF. But if you are interested in UCF, definitely hit us up, hit up our Discord. Our events are open to anybody, even if you're not a UCF student, so you can hang out with us, meet us, join our communities. We have a pretty active Rocket League and League of Legends community. And that's my bit, I guess.
Didn't even mention that it's you're the warm school out of the bunch here. Everyone else is going to be freezing, right?
Beaches are an hour and a half away either direction. Just saying, once COVID's over, it's pretty prime real estate.
I get kids, so I have kids from California and Hawaii this year that have never seen snow.
Oh, they're in for it here.
And I had a kid come up to me from Florida 2 years ago who'd never seen snow. And I will always remember, he walked in the first day, we got like 13 inches. And it was like the first time of the year that it snowed and it downpoured. And he literally walked in, just goes, "What the f-" and just like drops this loud F-bomb. And I'm just like, what the heck is, what? That's our Florida boy who's never seen snow before.
We all got those stories too. That's always funny. So for me here at Akron, I'll put the website in the chat. It's uakron.edu/esports. The school itself, we are primarily a STEM-minded institution. So the things that we do really well are engineering, computer information systems, and then we also have a very good business and law school here as well. In addition to that, we are one of the better esports programs across the country with 3 full-time staff members. The most, I believe, PC and console stations around for folks that are interested in the club and recreational aspect of things as well. And also, too, we're offering esports classes for students who are interested in careers in esports here at Akron. If you're looking to connect, the website has got my contact information and my personal cell phone on it. Feel free to reach out, as well as my Discord info is on there as well. Be happy to answer any questions that folks have about esports or about education in general. So we're going to go ahead and move into the Q&A session here. So if you do have a question, feel free to hit us up in the Q&A. We've got 6 queued up right now. We'll go ahead and answer those just in the order that they were asked. So anyone can feel free to chime in here and answer. The first question is from Christine, and they asked, interested in how we build communities on the team when everything is virtual. So anyone like to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, so building community, all virtual. Is that what I just heard? For confirmation?
Correct, yeah. How are we building the communities when everything is virtual right now?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. If you're looking at building community for your team, have them play non-competitive esports, non-competitive games that they're not competing in, right? So having them play Fall Guys, have them play Among Us together, have them play whatever, just something that gets them out of the esports mindset and into the like, hey, we're friends hanging out mindset. Second thing you could do is host watch parties, host game nights, host social networking events, host movie nights even. Just because we're going virtual doesn't mean that you have to be isolated. Have them play, right, so someone just mentioned in the chat, have them play The Forest, have them play scary games. Those are fun as a community to be able to like laugh and joke around with your teammates. You don't have to be isolated because we are isolated. And I think that's an important distinction to make for your students. You can very much build community in a variety of ways virtually. It does become challenging, as I said earlier on, like you have to figure out a way to immerse yourself without being able to fully immerse yourself like we typically know how. But it is very possible.
Thank you, Callum. One thing I would add to that as well is it's important to stick with a singular platform. As a group of folks that are trying to engage students virtually, sending them to half a dozen different platforms to do various tasks or fill in different things is a surefire way to lose some of them along the way. So choosing a particular platform for the delivery that Callum talked about is important, whether that's going to be Discord, whether it's going to be Microsoft Teams, whether it's WebEx or something else that you're using at your school. Finding one way to deliver that information is important. We can go ahead and answer the next one here as well. So the next one came in from Christian, and Christian asks, as a first-time coach trying to get esports up and running for my high school, what pitch can I give to students, parents, the administration, etc., regarding potential opportunities regarding esports in the kids' future? So we're talking to students, parents, administrators. What do we tell them about getting them to buy in?
I can take this one because I'm having this argument right now with my administration, actually.
Go for it.
And this is one I think we all probably get a lot. I think the biggest one is really the career aspect. You've already heard it in some of our answers about other aspects. Esports is interesting that it's not necessarily into itself. It's the end all. It is a way in which you access a multitude of STEM humanities career paths, whether that be going something as video editing and kind of like elementary, something we know of, but also things like logistics. Running a tournament for esports on any platform is a logistical nightmare, and one that is useful for event planning in a variety of areas. Marketing, of course, is an obvious one. Business has a lot of elements, and so I know, at least for us, we often are selling not necessarily the playing of the game itself, but more of what's around it, because it's what's around it that really makes things tick. And that's the thing that actually gets parents really interested, administrators interested, other faculty members actually wanting to be involved interested when they realize a lot of people have this concept that when they hear video games, it's, certain stereotypes. But in reality, that's not what modern esports is. That's not what modern gaming on a campus is. And once you get past that, more than often than not, that is enough to get them interested in talking.
Thank you, Dr. Price. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and go to the next question here from Jordan. I personally can't answer this question because we have not had this situation, but if anyone else on the panel has, I'd be interested to hear. And the question is, have any of your programs had issues with players being kept out of the country by COVID restrictions? If so, are there any possible solutions you've come up with?
Yeah, so we've had students opt out of not coming from internationally. So I had a student who was supposed to come from Ireland this year who was unable to come due to a travel ban. You can't from what I've kind of learned is you can't circumvent the government, right? So short answer is no, we have not come up with a solution, but we have been affected by it. I don't think you're going to be able to circumvent a government travel ban, largely due to students needing international visas to be able to come in, and they're just not going to get those issued. So even if you find a way to get around that, you still need to get that student a visa, or work with the student to get a visa. So I don't think there's a way around it. I think it's just one of those things that like it sucks to suck, but it sucks.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know on the academic side of things, we've seen it quite a bit, and we have not been able to work around the restrictions either. More just a matter of working with the student for the following year, and esports is probably very similar in that regard. The next question we've got is from Zachary, which I think Annabelle will probably be able to answer quite well. Zachary says that they're a senior in high school now. They're a manager for their high school team. Not a great player. How can they go about trying to become the team manager or getting some type of help towards a college esports team?
So I would definitely say, for me, I started out and I just decided I was going to run for esports director in our gaming club, and I did it, and it happened. But definitely seeking out resources and having the ability to ask for advice is one thing. And I think really you don't have to be a good player to be a good team member or to be a coach, or, well, coach is a longer discussion, but to be a manager or to be in an officer position, because we have a marketing coordinator. He literally does social media and our branding and everything. Doesn't matter if he's a player or not. So you really need to just focus on what is it that you want to do. If you want to be a manager, if you want to be like a general manager position, then focus on working with other organizations or at least interacting with other people, working on your communication skills, project management. Those are all things that will qualify you. And you don't need to be a good player to do things like that. I like rhythm games. That's all I play. But, I'm knowledgeable about the university. I'm knowledgeable about sport clubs, and I know about our teams. And that's something that I have over other people. So yeah, just market yourself, work on skills that you want to learn because you can learn them. You don't have to be a good player.
Thank you, Annabelle. From the administrative side of things, it looks a little bit different for some of the varsity programs, mostly because what they would ask of you for being a team manager or a team coach are really involved with either as a manager, the leagues that you're going to be a part of and the way that you communicate with those leagues. And then the coaching side of things is game knowledge, right? I don't necessarily need you to be a challenger top laner to come in and coach our team for League of Legends, but you better know the game, the meta game inside and out. You better consume it daily, be able to talk to me about top level strategies, be able to talk to me about what these pro teams, what these college teams have been doing. And doing that back end homework is really going to make you stand out from some of the other candidates who come in and say, I enjoy the game, I like playing it, and that's why I want to be on the team. That answer is not going to get you that far. The answer of I know the system in and out, I know how to work with people, I know how to communicate with them, is going to help you much more in the long run.
As a program head, I love passionate students who want to help run the program. That makes my life infinitely easier, and it helps me kind of custom tailor their experience, right? So we have a lot of students who've come in as competitors who have moved out of competing because they realize they enjoy working behind the scenes in a bunch of our games. One of my League of Legends starting AD carries his freshman year is going into his junior year now, and he's my director of marketing and broadcasting, right? And it's an opportunity for students to dive in and get hands-on experience that. So I always tell people that, like, when I started in the esports space, I started because I wanted it, so I made the opportunities happen for myself, and students don't have to do that anymore, right? So keep in mind, like, as far as esports goes, like, I'm an old dude, I'm 28 years old, and so, like, the opportunities that exist now literally did not exist 10 years ago, and so being the facilitator of a program, I know that I can create those opportunities under this roof for students to be able to come in and take those careers to the next level. So if I get a student that comes to me or goes to Nate or John or Annabelle that says, like, hey, I want to be involved in your esports program, but I'm no good, but I can do graphic design. That's a win just as much as a challenger level player is to me. Because that allows me to know, like, okay, I can rely on this student to come in passionate, and I can mentor and guide them, and they can create content and be involved in this program. They pursue their passion, the esports program wins, and in theory, 4 years later, they're graduating with a full resume of things that they've done, right? And so students, esports programs should, a successful esports program will recruit students that isn't just competitive.
Thank you, Callum. We've got another question here from Stephen, who asks, burnout is a very real risk. Trying to talk about burnout online is very challenging. I'd be interested to hear strategies that you've used not only to manage burnout, but recognize it during the pandemic.
So for us, we only mandate X amount of hours a week, and it's very low. I mean, like, we only mandate like 12 to 15 hours a week, which is about what our athletics teams are putting in. John raised his eyes, so he's either think it's really low or really high. So we do about 3 hours of practice 3 times a week, and then we'll have a match, which is pretty standard across the collegiate space. At least that's, I think, pretty standard across the collegiate space. We don't put our players into more than 1 or 2 leagues at a time, with the understanding that we don't want to burn them out. And we do tell them to step away and take a breather when we recognize that they're being affected. As far as I'm concerned, if some students find video games to be a release, right? And if you're coming in and you're socially active and you're passing your classes and you're enjoying yourself and you're doing well as a student, I don't think I'm in a position to sit there and tell you, hey, go outside. You've gotten that from your parents for 18 years. You're an adult. You can make those decisions yourself. When I start seeing grades slip up, and that's why relationships with the academic office is so important. Once I see grades starting to slip, once I see you in here all day, all night on a Saturday without anyone around and no social interaction, and once I can tell that you're starting to kind of, okay, you're starting to dive down a slippery slope here, that's when we'll step in and start to get involved, and to combat it, we'll make schedules, and we'll say, hey, you're only supposed to be in here from X to Y. What you do in your own room is, like, I hate to say it, but, like, there is a level of responsibility that goes to the students here. So, like, I can say you're only supposed to be in here for 10 hours a week, but if you're going in and you're playing in your dorm for 40 hours a week, like, I can't stop you. But that's where that personal ownership and responsibility comes in from being an adult. So.
Thank you, Callum. Dr. Price, Annabelle, anything else to add?
I only just go in on the eyebrow raising and just like, I'm glad that the amount of time that we're spending is at least closer to some of the other programs.
Awesome.
because-
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
so that was good.
I look, I know of schools, I won't name them, but I know of at least one that does 40 hours of, or they do 40 hours of team practice a week, and they mandate 20 hours of individual practice a week.
Okay, see,
Oh,
that's
come on, we
eyebrow
can
raising.
name them. We know who they are.
And that's that. Like, I get it with the goal and purpose of the program. I get it, but that is outrageous to me. But hey, I mean, it's different strokes for different folks, and that's part of doing your research as a faculty member and as a student. When you're looking for resources and programs, like, is this a program you want to be a part of? Like, that's something you should know before you go. And for some people, that is exactly what they want. And for some people, that they're going like, whoa, hold up, 15 hours a week is already too much, you know? So.
Yeah, encouraging, like Callum mentioned, encouraging the outside activities is super
Yep.
important. Making sure that the gaming aspect of it is important. It's what they came with a passion for. But college is an experience, right? It's an experience that you're not going to have for hopefully more than 4 or 5 years of your life for most instances, unless you decide to go back for a master's or a doctorate. But those are 4 years that you need to use outside of gaming as well. So as program directors, as students in programs, as administrators, as coaches, we try and encourage students to get out there and experience life outside of the game room. But that does end our Q&A session tonight. Dr. Price, Callum, Annabelle, myself, appreciate us being here. I appreciate all of you guys being here. Sorry we had the hosting snafu a little bit, but I would imagine that the recording is going to be available. So if you missed something or you'd like to rewatch something, I would imagine that this will be sent in an email form. Yes, we just confirmed that is true.
The PlayVS team can confirm, but $15 to my PayPal, and you will get the recording in return. I think that's what we worked out.
Excellent. Other than that, appreciate everyone's time. Thank you. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any one of us, and we'd be happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. It was awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
So do we leave now?